Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. As you can see, I'm in the studio with a guest. This is Peter, who has come in and says, I want to come into the studio because I've got some things to show to you. It's only down the road. In fact, it was like 2.5 hours, Peter, for you to get here, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So you were... I mean, it's lovely to have the interface between somebody real. And if I could do that all the time, but I suppose not being in the Midlands, which is what the most central part of the country, it's very difficult to sort of ask people to come in and right down to the south where I am.
Yeah.
But anyway, you've made the effort, and that's very kind. We're going to be talking about, well, it's difficult to say really, solutions, remedies, things to think about in the tyrannical system that we're in. I think we both agree that the governments that we have, probably across the world, is not necessarily a good thing. We've seen how one world government is being pushed towards us. We've lost so many common threads, I suppose. You know, we don't know our neighbours, for example.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's one thing that you want to address, in fact.
Yeah, and I think when we said let's meet up, you sort of said we can do it over Zoom. I said I'd rather do it in the flesh because I think you learn so much more from people's body languages, and you get to know way more than you can over Zoom, and you've got some skin in the game kind of thing. Literally.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. It is far nicer because you can have a much more nuanced conversation beforehand, and you can check to see if who you're talking to is on your own wavelength. And also, everything is done over Zoom. You know, so much is done electronically now. And one of my arguments is that we're rushing into this new technological world and leaving so much of the good stuff behind because we just think that it is obsolete. And yet, it's only 30 years that we've had the internet.
Yeah, and I've spent the last 4 years working from home because of the lockdowns, and I spent a fair amount of time working with, because I'm in IT, working with teams in India. So I've done my time on Zoom. So it's lovely to actually meet you and meet you and Julia.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had nice cups of coffee and all that downstairs. So let's talk about because we're going to sort of look at two particular things. One in the old-fashioned analogue way, which is very much, I mean, although I use all this technological equipment here and I can flash around the cameras pressing buttons as we go like this, which I do enjoy, but I still, and in fact, the more older I get, and I don't know whether that's just a maturing, is that I do hanker to a lot of the slower, more real way of doing things rather than digital. So we're going to talk about something from the analogue ways, as it were, but also the technology that we do have. We shouldn't be throwing that away either because it is so useful. And you've got an idea for something that is utilising the digital, which anybody can use these days.
Yeah.
So let's start with see you next week.
Yes. Okay, so...
And not Tuesday. Just, before any wisecracking person says it. What's that about?
Yeah, so I guess during my awakening, the key element of that was actually face-to-face meetings post-lockdown with people that were already further down on that journey.
Right.
So there's a group meeting called Third Wednesday, and it's been really instrumental, really, I suppose, helping me sort of just find other people that are questioning the narrative.
So is that sort of like-minded people that meet up every third Wednesday of the month?
Exactly, yeah. So it's nice and simple, one location. I mean, there's a number of them around the country. I think it's a Denning-Pole related sort of activity. Who's an ex-Twitterer,
right?
I think he has a podcast actually.
Yes,
I've never actually.
James Denning-Pole.
I'm not sure which one. I think there's a couple of brothers. So it was taking a leaf out of their book, but then it was also, sort of there's a lot of parties being generated, etc. All trying to sort of trying to get the alternative vote, should we say, to gravitate towards them.
Oh, so, political parties.
Yeah, political parties, yeah. And I've always sort of said they're all too small, etc. And so this is not really anything related to that, but it's sort of spinning it on its head rather than having centralised sort of organisations. Let's make it localised.
Right.
Not even an organisation. So
grassroots movements in which the people are getting off their backside and doing things.
Yeah, it's trying to connect people in their local sort of areas, in the local neighbourhoods, in their wards. Together to try and just give them an excuse to go and bump into each other and introduce themselves, be it sort of socially, or be it from a commercial perspective or a hobbyist perspective, or just someone who might have a problem with something that's going on in the local neighbourhood and they want to get a groundswell of sort of opinion and maybe some help and assistance in that, and also to try and encourage people to do things more themselves. We have the power kind of thing. We always seem to be asking authority for permission to do things.
Oh, I know. It drives me mad.
Yeah, and anecdotally, when I moved into a new estate, there was these two matriarchal women who were sort of the driving force behind. And I went along to one of their meetings, and it was very much a lot of people were there, and they were moaning to them and saying, "Can you do this and that needs to be?" And I was the only one that said, "Why don't we just do it ourselves?"
Right.
And they sort of hugged me at the end of the meeting and said, "Thank God someone just wants to get on and do stuff."
Yes.
So it's a little bit of that. It's during the lockdown, people have moved into our neighbourhood and they've not really sort of had the opportunity to, meet the old neighbours, as it were. Not that I'm old, but
no,
you know what I mean.
Not at all. I mean, the thing is, I live in as you can see, as you came here, I live in a row of terraces. With another row of terraces opposite me, with a relatively long road, which is probably a quarter of a mile in length, and it's broken up into these sort of 20 houses or so. I've been here 33 years, and over the years, yes, people have come and go. Perhaps some people who I felt easier to talk to, but very much, hello, how are you? Nice to see you, that sort of thing, and that's it. And generally, I don't know anybody on the other side of the road. Yeah, and that's it's really weird.
It's quite common as well. I tend to know people that walk dogs, and my immediate neighbours. So we do the sort of Christmas card, sort of tit for tat, and then everyone else I just know through their dogs.
Right.
I don't know what they're called, but I know their dog's name. It's that kind of paradigm.
And it's the same at schools, isn't it? With your parents pick up, and I remember the same thing. Parents would pick up their smaller children. And you would sort of see the same set of people, the same set of parents, of course, because your kids are in the same class or at the same school. But that might be it. That social interaction then stops. But if you go back to those smaller communities of old, where everybody used to know everybody's business, you could leave the back door open and all of that.
Yeah.
It was, and it was a lovely time. Well, rose-tinted glasses and all of that.
Well, I'm from Cheltenham, so Cheltenham is a little bit special because it's full of spies from GCHQ. So you have these conversations. So what do you do?
So they're just like listening into you.
Oh, yeah. What do you do? Nothing. Okay, you work at the donut. So that's like the code word. And I went to Polytechnic back in the day in Pontypridd in Treforest, and people would speak to me at the bus stop, and I'd be like, what's going on here? This is an out-of-body experience. We don't talk to each other in Cheltenham because it's all very closed. And that was a great revelation, actually. And you're right. And I've worked in Wales loads, and they have great communities in the valleys, etc. And working with those guys, I had a great time, and we all into each other's business. But that's how you care about things.
Yes.
And I suppose this is really trying to say, okay, within this neighbourhood, let's actually invest in each other and emotionally attach to each other's, life journey, etc.
Right.
Don't leave it to someone else, because we seem to have deferred all of our responsibility to some people that are absolutely unqualified to be doing the jobs.
And I guess by that you're referring to councils and governments.
Take your pick.
Absolutely.
Pick. Yeah, they seem to have inverted it, gone from. And this really isn't about sort of the awake agenda. but they seem to have concerned themselves with the globalist agenda rather
Yes.
than the local agenda. So I'm all for getting removal of graffiti, for example, or having the streets swept. And if they're not going to do it, then we should do it, and maybe we should bill them.
Yes.
Because they're the potholes aren't they're getting bigger and bigger, etc. Sort of
Well, somebody sent me a book. I've mentioned this before. Somebody sent me a book which is on a very it was a private run, and this chap wrote this book over 5 years, and he cites some work from or some quotations from the two-party system by Hare Belloc and C.K. Chesterton, and what they say in there, and also it's reflected in the work of somebody called C.H. Douglas, writing 100 years ago about democracy.
Yeah.
And he says within all of this is that democracy's turned on its head. This is in 1920.
Yeah.
That the people should be making the policies. They tell their representative, which would be the MPs. The representative then goes to the executive of government and says, "This is what the people want. Go and do it." And the government is supposed to go and do that. And then if they don't do it, the people say, "Well, we'll get somebody who will."
Yeah.
But what we've now got is that sort of top-down government in which they tell us what they're going to give us, and we're all going, "Oh, okay, that's the only choice."
Yeah.
And that's not how it should be.
Yeah, and this See You Next Week isn't really about necessarily focusing on that. It is more about connecting with your neighbours so that there's a unity and there's a sort of common thread. But if a natural voice arises within that community, it might want, the community might want to propose that person to represent them in the local sort of council stuff. But it's that old adage of those people that seek power are instantly disqualified.
Yes.
So there's almost a case of, maybe they'll just push someone forwards, twist his arm or her arm and get them to represent them, sort of thing. That would be the ideal. But if that doesn't happen, because this is very low maintenance, this is literally plant the seed, organise the meet, choose a day, find a venue, spread it organically using physical material. There is a website, but that's just sort of very, very, very minimal, because I don't want to be spending all my time doing it.
Yeah, so you've got a website, and we've got it here, haven't we? So let's just have a quick look at the website here. See You Next Week, Meet, Connect, Network and Support. And as you can see, facing you are some owls. Now, it's interesting what you had told me before we started filming, what the owls represent.
Oh, wisdom, observation, great eyesight, and also a collection of owls is a parliament. It's also a collection of crows, but we'll stick with the owls.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's the crows that are in government at the moment, not the wise owls. Clearly.
Yeah, quite.
So we want wise owls out there who listen to what people want.
Yeah, and I think the key thing about this is also very, very local. So there's no website to log into. You literally turn up at the place and you have a chat, and that's it.
And it could be a pub on a Saturday morning or a Wednesday morning or whenever it is.
Yeah.
See You Next Wednesday is the name of it. And you're inviting the immediate locality.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that
So
the concept?
I'll be distributing these leaflets on Sunday, basically to the local houses in the ward that I'm in. So that happens to be Hester's Way, Cheltenham. So if you get one of these, have a read of it. There's the location there, which I always forget her name, but we've arranged it with the local hotelier to allow us to sort of congregate. And who knows, you might meet your a local plumber. You might meet
or your neighbour, your next door neighbour. I never knew you lived here, or what you did.
Yeah.
Or that actually,
exactly.
I've got a hole in my roof. I didn't know you were a roofer.
And it's not even what they do; it's what they do in their part time. The hobbies. You might be a new club member. I know we've got a taekwondo instructor down the road from us, but other people may not know that kind of thing. So it's just that whole, you may not meet them, but someone may know someone that knows someone else. And just the fact that you can just go around and knock on the door and say, "Are you available for this, that, and the other?" Or "I hear you're into steam engines, etc." Do you fancy?
Absolutely. And the other thing, of course, is that in the past we used to have newspapers, local newspapers. Some people may still get a local paper, but it's basically an advertising rag. But we did have at one point local news, and local radio stations which talked about local issues. If it strikes me that if you can get people together in the locality on a regular basis, you are going to be talking about those local issues that matter to you.
Yeah.
That at the moment we don't really know who you talk to about them, or it's almost we've forgotten that we, the people, can do something about them anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So a point in case, we've just had this massive multi-million-pound extension of a roundabout from 3 lanes to 4 lanes. So it's an absolute nightmare for us to get across.
Right.
We were consulted and duly ignored.
Yeah.
So nothing's changed there, really. But what it's meant is that we used to have a path to another road, and that's all changed. So organically, someone has been putting down sort of cement over the grass to create a new path to connect to get around this problem. And it's a case of why can't we do that?
Taking back responsibility.
This is our sort of area. This is our land, and it's more of a case of don't ask for permission, do it, and then ask for forgiveness kind of thing. But it'll be done, because we seem to be just waiting for someone else to do something for us, and actually we have the power. And who are we to be argued with if it's the community's sort of wish?
You're not asking for those solo, one-man band doing something that nobody wants. But if you as you say, you can see that there is a need to go there, and you're surreptitiously putting a bit of cement down the trousers like they did, doing the reverse of digging a tunnel in these old war films.
But there's lots of examples of that, and it's just sort of bringing a focus to that and then not accepting it. Because someone was sort of saying about the graffiti that suddenly appeared. It's a slippery slope. It's the thin end of the wedge. And, I think people are detached from their local environment, so much so that it just keeps going, accelerating down and down and down.
Yes.
And it's like, we've got to say, no, we need to stop this and,
but
draw a line in the sand.
Also, I mean, if you're effectively reminding the councils or the government that actually we would like to be responsible for it, that all the time it seems to me that they think, oh, well, they won't do anything because they're stupid or they're too busy or whatever it is, so we always have to do it. Then we've got to budget for it, we've got to schedule it, we've got to do it. Whereas perhaps by people doing things, it might remind the council, actually, we don't have to be responsible for everything, because the more we can get people involved, the better.
Yeah, and it's a win-win, isn't it, sort of thing.
I mean, just off on a slight tangent, I think with the problems that we've got with the council tax at the moment, if you were able to say, look, I'm struggling to pay, but I'm more than happy to put some hours into the community. That might be driving some Meals on Wheels to people, or painting a building or a bridge to offset what you have been targeted to pay, so that you're helping everybody. But everything seems so bloody anti-human at the moment. That
sounds like One Small Town, doesn't it, to a certain extent?
Yes.
Your free labour in return. Well,
you're bartering, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're bartering and saying, look, I haven't got the income at the moment because I only get this much work and I've got these bills going out, and I don't want you taking my car or my van, and I don't want you selling that, and I don't want the enforcement, but I'm happy to put in some time into the community because this is a community, and I'm happy to contribute, which is supposedly what the council tax is supposed to do. But anyway, let's so just tell me a bit more about your website. Let's have a little dive down so people can see it, because you've got here no membership, no logins, no emails, no fees, no IDs, no app, no spin, no agenda, just an invitation to connect with your neighbours. So what sort of, how do you expect this to grow and develop?
Well, I suppose the proof will be in the pudding come next Thursday, which is when the first meet is going to happen. The success, I suppose the success for me is that I'm doing something. I'm not just sitting idly by and moaning about it, kind of thing. So whether it works or not remains to be seen. It will be down to the community to whether or not it succeeds. So like I say, it's a quite light touch in terms of my administration and involvement. Once I've planted the seed, like anything in nature, you just see if it grows or not.
Yes.
If it's on the wrong ground, it won't grow, and if it's on the right ground, it will.
And things take time anyway,
Yeah.
that's the thing. If you
Yeah.
get 2 people turning up, then you don't want to be sort of going, oh, it was a complete disaster, because these things, might take 6 months to really become something that is unavoidable. And people come in with their own ideas, of course, and add ingredients to the mixture.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't have to be there. You could just, you just set it up, like I say, and it'll happen or it won't. But the idea behind the website is that there's every single ward in every single seat
Right.
can have a representation. So in terms of growing it, what I'm looking for are people that think, yeah, that's actually a reasonable idea. I'm prepared to invest some money and some time of my own, which is what I've done essentially, and I'll distribute the leaflets. So there's going to be thousands of the leaflets to actually distribute. The idea is to just give one to each home in your ward, and that's your bit done once you've identified where the ward is. So all those I've just dumped them down.
Yes, I'm just trying to see where
I've done one for you actually, strangely enough.
Oh, have you?
Well, one for where are we?
I'm looking at. Oh, that's East. We want West Sussex, don't we? Hang on, it's right down here somewhere. It's always near the bottom.
Yeah, there we go. See that little light blue one?
There we go.
No.
Oh, no.
Oh, you've gone straight into it. There you go.
I've gone straight into Worthing.
Because they're not all populated by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
So if you could just go back up again and go into the one on the blue on the left, see just underneath West Midlands.
Oh, yes, West
Have a look
Sussex.
at that
Yes.
one. Just scroll down, and then you can see Worthing. And then there you go. Keep going down. That's probably not your ward. Click on that. Durrington ward. There we go. So that's the kind of idea, is that you'll register the ward with myself. So all I need to know is, where do you want to hold it? What time do you want to hold it? What day do you want to hold it? And then I'll send you through the templates for you to be able to print out the details that you can then stick into people's doors. So it's all very manual.
Presumably, I mean, you've highlighted this particular ward, which
That's from the OS maps.
Oh, I see.
So that's
but presumably, if somebody in Cheviot Road here, wherever that is, thinks that, and let's say in Pond Lane, that's where the hall is, or wherever it's being held, they're welcome to come. No one's excluded.
Well, I would say.
Oh, they are.
Sorry.
Well, they are bouncers on the door.
Not exactly. No. No one will know where you've come from, etc.
No.
But the idea would be that if you're in Cheviot Road, for example, that you find somewhere in your ward. So there's instructions.
Right.
If in the bit that says plant your acorn or plant your seed.
But you wouldn't. I mean, in the early days, I mean, the whole thing is to try and get communities.
Oh yeah,
to
no
talk
one's
to one
no
another.
one's not. Everyone's welcome.
Yeah.
But you probably won't know about it because it's only through the leaflets.
Yes.
There's no other than this website. There's nothing else.
Right.
So so all of those other locations are ready to be,
Sorted
have the
out.
acorn popped in there.
Brilliant. Well, it'd be interesting. I mean, we've publicised it now, and so hopefully people will think about it and give you some feedback. And, and is there an email on there to sort of send feedback or anything?
If you go to, I think, is it the Plant an Acorn?
Plant an acorn. Here we go. Oh, hang on.
This sort of. Oh.
Yeah. So in other words, I've just come. You press on, just so you
if
can
you
see.
just scroll down, it just
Yeah,
gives
you press that. Go to Plant an Acorn. We're actually there.
Oh, you're in there, yeah.
Yeah.
So just scroll down. It gives you step-by-step instructions to find out what ward you're in. You go to the OS maps and you put your postcode in, and then it will tell you that. And you just see their info at SYN.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Just drop me an email with the bits of information that I've asked for above or below, and then I'll.
You could be quite busy then.
I'd love to be quite busy. I'd be fine with that. That would be a success if I'm busy.
Fantastic. Well, that's really cool. And I'll leave the link obviously in the description. Sometimes YouTube takes the links out. I don't know why it does that. The algorithm, if it doesn't like where it's going. So I always say the link as well, so you hear it by your ears. So just for the sake of argument, it's s-y-n-w.net. And you'll find it there. So in other words, see you next Wednesday.
No,
hyphened.
next week.
Oh, sorry, next week. Yes, not next. I don't know why I said
Third
Wednesday.
Wednesday is.
Oh yes, that's where I got.
So
confused.
this isn't for wide awake people. This is for anybody.
Anybody. Well,
Anybody that wants to connect with their neighbours.
Yes, and I mean that seems to be the beauty at the moment. I think there's this huge feeling that we have to wake people up and tell them all about Agenda 21 and Agenda 30, and that there's this depopulation thing going on, and there's certain medical interventions and you know, Luciferians, Satanists, and all of this. But I think actually, if you do all of that and you try and blitz people with all that information, they're just going to put their head in the sand. Whereas if you can find those things that are affecting them, and it might be they're being penalised on the council tax, or it might be they've had a parking ticket, or it might be they're lonely and they just want people to talk to, or they might just be aware that, you know, there's too many cameras, or they don't like the sound of 5G, not knowing what it's actually going to do. That can bring people together and not frighten them off.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if you're just bringing them, you know, the old-fashioned analogue, bringing people in front of each other, like what churches and pubs used to do. You know, there's that whole thing about the being in front of real people. It's a lovely thing, and you come away and you don't get that when you switch off a Zoom call.
No. You know, Zoom. You don't know if they're listening. You don't know. You know, if they've got the camera off.
Yes.
They could
and they're muted and they're swearing at you. You know, it's like, oh well.
And it's not just to take problems; it's to share things as well.
Yes.
I mean, we've got neighbours that are horticulturists and aperists, and we've just bought a small chunk of land. So I'm dragging them over the next Friday to see if they can sort of give me some advice and maybe stick a beehive there. So you know, it's all about those interconnections, you know, the little things that make all the difference.
It's things that we used to do 100 years ago that we have slowly been atomised, and you know, the other thing is, I mean, look at way universities are, that kids now go to universities hundreds of miles away from their parental home. The kids tend to make friends, and they sort of, like, in the end get a flat nearby, or they've got a flat whilst they're at university, and suddenly before you know it, they're there, they've got married and settled down miles away from them, and so you've got families at Christmas travelling, you know, whereas in the past we didn't travel that far away from each other, and the families were more united.
It's interesting because my parents came from London, as we'll get on to actually, and my mum and dad moved out to Cheltenham because dad was in the RAF, and it always seemed like, oh, grandparents are always 150 miles away, and so you see them once or twice a year. But when I had kids and settled down, I settled down with, you know, near my parents or both sets of parents for babysitting purposes, but also so they could have a really deep relationship with their grandparents. And I think that absolutely pays dividends.
Yes.
Saying that, I think my kids are going 200 miles away.
Yes, really are. Well, let's move on then from See You Next Week, which is our sort of old-fashioned analogue thing, and move on to using the technology that we have to our advantage, not their advantage. And you have an idea for an app, but it starts, I think this concept starts with a coconut.
It can do, yeah, sure.
So
this is an app. It is a thing.
Yes.
I haven't shown you the app, have I?
No.
But, so it's basically the actual sort of technical term is a digital letter of wishes. So it's like a will, but it's not legal. It's more capturing intentions, but in a digital manner, so that you can really go to town on it. So you don't have to manage bits of paper and sort of have them ferreted away, and you can do it organically when you think of something. So it's all about the small stuff. So the big stuff generally.
Like who's getting?
I'm conscious I'm waving my hands around.
Yeah, no. So what you're saying is, if you know, leaving the house and car and, you know, expensive paintings or something like that, but when you've got a tiny little brooch or a ring, or sentimental stuff. You know, all of that can end up clumped into a free-for-all when somebody dies.
Yes, absolutely.
Is that right?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. You know, and that's often where the arguments start, and that's where people fall out because they're after the same little brooch or whatever. So the point is, and now don't get me wrong, we did not fall out over anything.
No.
But this I'm going to show this now. So this is the curious coconut, as I like to call it. So this was a thing, a ever-present object at my nan's house in Norwood in London.
Let me just say that when I first saw that, I thought it was some gourd. I didn't realise, and it shows my ignorance, because I've only ever seen coconuts in the hairy and you break them and you get the milk out. But actually, just explain. This
is the original husk. So this would have been green back in the day.
Right.
Probably in the mid-50s, maybe. And if you can hear the coconut is still in there, but it's obviously shrunk over time. So this is the original green husk.
So would there have been flesh on the inside holding the nut in position?
I don't know.
Would it have just been rocking around inside?
No, it wouldn't have rocked around originally. It's just because it's shrunk over time.
Right.
It's dried
I see.
up.
Yeah.
And this is slowly falling apart. But so when Nan died at 103, good genes.
Yes. Amazing genes.
Yeah. We were asked, was there anything you want from her house, kind of thing? And I said, I'd love the coconut, because it was always there. And strange enough, my sisters said, oh, we'd like the coconut as well. And I managed to sort of, that's the only thing I want. I don't care about anything else. And so this is it. But the story behind it is quite fascinating. And I would love, if anybody else has got a coconut that has been posted from some part of the old British Empire, I would love you to get in contact.
So that was, tell us.
This was, so my dad was in the RAF, and he was out in Aden, Salalah, and he was working on Hunter jets. He was working as a radio technician, and he got this coconut. He painted one side of it. He painted on the address, Mr. Miller, 45 Queen Mary Road, London. This pre-postcode. It's got SE something. Stuck a couple of stamps on it.
Yeah,
gave it to the postmaster with a very young Queen Elizabeth II. Gave it to the postmaster and said, "There you go. Can you deliver that to my mum in London?"
And they did.
The Royal Mail or the equivalent in the armed forces. Yeah. Stuck it on a plane.
I suppose it's got a stamp and it's got an address. And it's,
exactly.
Self-contained.
Yeah. Exactly. So can you just imagine that in the postman's bag? What have you got there then? Oh, it's for you.
It's for you.
But they didn't chop it open and eat the coconut. They just kept it.
They just kept it. Yeah.
So
this
is like the family heirloom. It's absolutely worthless and priceless at the same time.
Yes.
And I love the story behind it as well.
So that's the sort of thing that people might argue about.
Yeah.
But if the owner of that says, well, actually, I would like so-and-so to have it, you could write that down on a scrap of paper. You wouldn't necessarily put it in your will, your last will and testimony, because there'd be a billion things that you would have to do if you did that. But with an app, you're saying that you could, over a period of 5 years or whenever, just take photographs. Oh, yes, actually, John's shown an interest in that, or Fred. Take a picture of it, put it on the app, and it's there.
Yeah, you're mapping basically a person to a thing.
Yes.
But then you can change your mind.
Yes.
You can sort of swap it around. But
So what happened? You've had that argument.
So what happened with Mum was that she got a bit confused just before she died, and she wrote a bit of paper, numerous versions of it, and they had different names for different things, and she'd given away a ring to 2 or 3 people. So it was all a bit. We never fell out over it. It was all very, it was absolutely fine. But I just thought, there must be a better way, because we didn't know what these things were. They were described, and sometimes only the person that's describing it knows what they're on about.
Right.
So having a picture,
yes, of course,
and maybe even a location, and maybe a bit more information around it.
I've buried in the garden, or I've put into a tree.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I've geocached your inheritance.
Yeah, your inheritance, and this is how you've got to get to it. And winner takes all. That would be hilarious. I love that idea.
Book by Kit Williams, where he buried the hair.
The hair. Yeah.
What's it called?
But anyway, that sort of thing. So the app's in existence, and we have another website to have a look at. So let's have a look at that. So this is called
Locket. Yes, so the idea is, with the old traditional locket that goes round or hangs down, it's 2 pictures.
Yes.
Essentially, it's matching those 2 pictures, one on the other kind of thing. So that forms the locket. So at the moment it's available on Apple. My wife and I have funded it ourselves and had it developed for us. So we're looking for any investors that would like an Android version, because I found out I have an Apple phone, and unfortunately people my age tend to have Android. So,
yes, well, I have an Android.
I'm the kind of perfect age for it, because I wanted to use it.
Yes.
I've always been quite suspicious of solicitors and that sort of stuff.
Well, quite wisely, really, I think, these
yeah,
days.
Yeah. But saying that, I mean, we've had our will written, and I would thoroughly recommend that being done, because there's lots of technical things that you have to jump through. But in our will, we just say all other stuff, look in our locket.
And does it have to be online with the app? Can you use the app on a web page like you've got here?
No. So
if you haven't got a mobile phone,
if you haven't got a mobile phone or a tablet, you can't collect the information. So
right. A tablet you could use.
Yeah, you could use a tablet. Yeah. So so the idea is that it's all sort of multimedia centric, so pictures and videos and stuff like that, and you can attach videos and pictures to a thing. So if there's something you want to highlight or detail, you can do that. You can layer the sort of multimedia aspects to it, and then you can leave little messages or a voice message or a little video message, whatever you like.
Yes.
And you can leave messages to the individual themselves aside from the actual objects. So if there's, like it says there, if there's things that you wanted to say but never did, you can leave a little message, a farewell. I know it's all kind of down in sort of, we're talking about the end of days kind of thing,
but this is what does go through people's minds, though, isn't it? I mean, people will be thinking as they approach. I mean, people clear their house and they try and put their house in order. My dad started to do that before the dementia came in. Now, he wasn't online at all.
Yeah.
And I don't think he even knew that's what he was doing, but he would just slowly sort stuff out. Then he started to lose his mind with dementia, which was very sad for him. It's gone black. It made it much easier for me, as I was I had the power of attorney, and then I was the executor of his will. It made it so much easier to sort out the stuff at the end. But it was a bit of a free-for-all, because it was with my sister. I mean, luckily there was only two of us, my sister and I. And do you want that then? Or okay, I'll have this. And we were hunting around for a family heirloom of some value.
Yeah.
And sadly, there wasn't anything, because he lived so long. And in the end, everything started to become obsolete. So there was no. But that, that's just one of those things that we wanted something personal that we could remember him by.
Yeah.
And I fortunately had, because of what I do, I had videoed him, and I have his voice.
Yeah.
And I've got some videos which are on YouTube actually, but of him in the stage of dementia, because I wanted to share how that happens to people. And same with my mother. I interviewed her on a podcast.
Yeah.
So sometimes if I think, I haven't heard my mum, I'd love to hear her voice. But of course, with phones now, people can gather all those video recordings together and presumably put them in the locket.
Yeah, this again is kind of trying to get away from the mass multimedia.
Right.
Even though you can do it,
yes.
It's designed to be a little bit awkward, because we've got 10,000 photos of what we get.
Yes, I suppose.
And this is saying, no, you've got to actually pull that in.
But if you put them on, say, a DVD,
yeah,
you could say, this is the DVD, this is where it is.
Yeah.
It's kept in this drawer,
yeah.
And there's 4 copies, one for each of you apart from Brian.
Exactly.
Whatever it is. If you wanted to have a bit of a wry smile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the way it's a bit like a will in that you have executors, but you have what we call guardians. So you notify them that you're creating this repository of images and who's going to get what, and then they look after that when you pass, kind of thing. So there's another trouble with wills, is that no one actually knows unless you've got them stored somewhere and you've told someone.
Yes.
When I was doing the research for this,
even who the solicitor is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was at a will writer's, and he was getting emails saying, "Have you got a will for so and so and so and so in your safe?" So they have no real clue. So this is kind of trying to say, I've connected to these people. There's like a number of them. They can unlock it when I'm gone. and then they can help distribute the smaller stuff out, and people can then also download the messages that you've left for them from the web, so they don't need an app to access it.
Well, I was going to say, is it protected? Because if that phone breaks,
Yeah.
and then it's like, it's
so-
all on that phone, and now
so-
we can't access it.
So
that's,
none of it's on the phone; it's all in the cloud in
Right.
in a UK-based server.
yes,
So even though you're using the phone as the mechanism to capture it,
right,
you know,
okay, so
so-
it's not, because that's it, and presumably there's some safeguards about who can access that information.
yeah. So no one can access anything until you've passed,
Right.
and then the guardians have to then request for that information to be unlocked.
Yeah.
And then once that's unlocked, then the people that are on it will see it, essentially, that have been earmarked it, and it's up to the guardians to then contact them, tell them the bad news potentially, and so it's almost a list of people that you want to contact. I mean, what you can also use it for is identify what music and what coffee and all that kind of stuff. I know it sounds, this is
But these are, these are
they're
things that people have got to.
yeah.
And I know this people watching this might say, well, what's this got to do with the truth and freedom movement sort of thing? But actually, we know, thanks to a certain medical intervention, that people are dying unexpectedly, or they may go to hospital and have certain procedures which aren't good. So it might be worth just safeguarding your future for your generations. Be a bit more aware of it. I think that that people do need to. It's one of those things that we don't do anymore, because people don't die at home generally. People die in hospital, and if you go back to Victorian times, people would get ill, the doctor would actually come round and give you some quackery, and then you pass away, and people were laid out in state. Death was part of people's life. We've gone through that period where death and all of that has been, like so much in our life, taken away from us again.
Yeah.
Going back to our earlier conversation.
Yeah, and this really isn't for you. It's for the people that survive you.
Yes.
Because it can be quite traumatic. So it's just trying to smooth that away so that you don't have to make decisions, or you don't fall out over decisions.
No.
Oh, Mum would have liked this song. Oh, I think she'd have liked that song. There might be sort of tension. There might not, but it's just like, it might sound like it's very controlling.
Yes.
But actually, it's just with the best intentions. Don't.
Well, it's, as you said,
This is
their
where
wishes, isn't it?
Yeah, this is where I want my ashes scattered.
Yes.
There's a geolocation.
Right. Yeah.
Not some sort of random sort of type of a vague sort of notion.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
So
we
example,
never knew what to do with Dad, because we knew he wanted to be cremated, but he never said where.
Right.
And in the end, I've still got half of him here, and the other half is in the garden when we sold the house. As an interesting story, we were desperately trying to sell the house after he'd gone, because we were paying the I nearly called it the poll tax then, but it was the council tax, and it was just going on and on. We couldn't sell it. And then I came up with the idea, and I said to my sister, do you think we should sprinkle some of his ashes in the garden, because he loved the garden? And she said, yeah, do it.
Yeah.
A week later, we had the offer that happened.
Oh.
And it was like some divine intervention.
Just coincidence.
Yeah, of course it was. That's right.
That's interesting. I mean, that's on that morbid subject. We had two big Akitas, and we're burying their ashes on this land that we just bought. So we're going to stick some trees over them.
Right.
And they'll be our guardians. So that'll be nice.
Fantastic. That sounds like, we've looked at two different aspects of the modern world that we're in. One, looking at the old way of meeting and greeting and doing things with people again, which is so vital. And also using the digital technology for what we want, as we are constantly being pushed into areas of technology which is not necessarily for our benefit, such as the surveillance and the soon to come digital IDs and all of this. So it is quite, for me, who is wary of the digital world, even though I use it here, in a hopefully a benign way or an informative way, or just sharing my opinions and what have you, and sharing the guest, I am wary that we rush into technology too quickly. Now, you're a geek. You said when we first met, that is what you do. Do you think that I am silly to be wary of this fast acceptance of digital?
No. I myself am trying to de-digitize. I've just bought myself a little Nokia brick.
Oh right, have you?
Because I'd be, it's part of the drug culture. It's not just the pharmaceuticals. We're being drugged up on television. We're being drugged up on TikTok. Guilty.
Yes.
Even YouTube.
Yes.
Can I say that?
Yes. Yeah. No. Well. Hopefully this is on YouTube.
Yeah. So just actually going back to just having a phone and essentially a personal desktop assistant.
Yes.
Is great because I can't stream anything on my phone, but until I get home, kind of thing. So, I'm looking around, I'm looking up, I'm looking, making eye contact with people, probably scaring them in Cheltenham. But one thing I would say about the locket is the great thing is it's organic. So when you think of something, you can just capture it there and then.
Yes.
If you're doing a will or whatever, you've got to sit down for hours, and especially if you've got a will writer or a solicitor,
it's costing you as well.
Well, it's going to cost you, and also they're going to be there for days if you go through the minutiae, if you're that sort of person.
Yes.
So that's a big thing. I when I go dog walking, something might pop into my head, and I'll just capture it, and it's done.
And of course, if you change your mind,
yes,
with a will writer, it's a right pain in the
neck. Exactly. Yeah. Or if you sell something.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like I've got to contact him and change it all.
And then if you haven't done it by the time you die,
yeah,
you get knocked down by the bus. But if you've just come up with that idea, done that, get knocked down by the bus, at least you know that item, whatever it was,
it's
the bus stop sign that you were going to.
It's very current. You can keep it up to date. So
yes.
As people come and go as well in your life. One way or another. So
Well, I hope that's been interesting. Sort of look at the two sides of those things, and it's interesting what you're saying about the fact that you're going somewhat backwards with the technology. I keep my phone pretty much on silent most of the time because I'm recording so much. But also, I just don't want to be called or all the beeps and all the notifications from the WhatsApp groups, the Telegram groups, and the text messages, and all, because it's just all the time. What's that about?
Yeah.
I want it on my terms.
You lose your focus completely.
And these days, you never know who's ringing you anyway. There's it may be the bailiff, or it may be just the sales calls. It used to be on the old landline, which in the end I had to unplug because I just was wasting my time answering it. So I'd be interested in people's comments. Do you think that we are rushing into the digital world? But what things would you hold on to in the digital world that you think is to our advantage? That would be interesting. And what do you think of the locket? And how much are you interested in retaining from the analogue ways, and what do you fear that we miss? They would be interesting comments to read. But Peter, it's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you for coming to the studio.
My pleasure. It's been great.
As Peter came in, he said, "Wow." And I said, well, it is wow, except a lot of people don't realise, of course, this is the master bedroom, and behind that wall is the small, sort of very small bedroom that I've sacrificed so that one can do this. But it's all good fun. But thank you for coming down all this way and bringing these ideas. Unfortunately, you're going to take your coconut away with you.
I certainly am.
But that's it. I hope you found this interesting. I'll be back with more monologues and other wonderful interviews. But in the meantime, from Peter and myself, look after yourself. Have a lovely time. Do leave us a comment. And I will see you next time. Till then, bye-bye.
Bye.